and welcome to episode 65 of the Drunken Boxing Podcast. Alright, let's jump right into some Mushin martial culture news. Over on our YouTube channel, since the last podcast, we've released a few videos. The first video is a video that is taken and drawn directly from the Qigong online learning program, and it is a video where I discuss a rather rare sword that was given to me by my teacher. This is actually from the program. Usually these videos are not for the public, but I thought this one was rather interesting and that the public might like to see a rather rare sword that was handed down to me. Probably one of a kind in general, but maybe there are others out there with the same thing, but I know my teacher only had one made, which he gave to me. So go check that out. I also released a glimpse video from once again, a lesson from the Qigong online learning program, this time showing some glimpses from a lesson on the Qigong, or the rooster form from Xing Yi Quan's 12 Animals, and particularly focused on application. So it's taken from a lesson in which I go into, it's a series of lessons on the application of the rooster shape. And here are just some glimpses and highlights for you guys to see what we offer in the program. Once again, the program is open and available. In fact, a few of the videos that I released since the last podcast were drawn from the program itself, including a introduction and discussion, just a general introduction to the Chinese straight sword, or the Jian. That discussion is also taken from the Qigong online learning program. Of course, these videos were released quite a while ago on the program, and sometimes I choose some of the videos to release to the public. So if you're interested in the program, if not, the videos themselves are also pretty interesting, so go check them out. They're over on our YouTube channel. I also released episode 4 of the Squalor Warrior series, which is a translation of an interview done with Professor Ma Ming Da. So I've been releasing these short episodes from that, and episode 4 is out. Then I released just a advert type of highlight video, just showing you some of the Kung Fu apparel, t-shirts, training clothing, etc. that I have for sale on the Mushin Martial Culture online store, which is at our website, mushinmartialculture.com. The designs of the t-shirts are ones that I did myself. I offer them in t-shirts, some of them are in hoodie as well, but they're all original ideas and designs that I did myself, usually stemming from something that I would like to wear or something that I always wished was done, and then I just create the design, bring it to life. And more recently, as you guys know, I've been doing a lot of these retro kind of 90s and 80s pop culture video game themed t-shirts. I did a few on Xingyi, on Bagua, one on Tai Chi. Well, I added one now due to popular demand from the public asking me to make something like this, which is the same 1980s Nintendo 8-bit video game Kung Fu Master themed top, but this time it was based on Shaolin, and it features some of the old murals from the walls of the monks training that I did in retro style pixel art in line with the old cover of the game. And then I took it one step forward and went and expanded on that pixel art style and just made a general Shaolin Quan or Shaolin boxing themed t-shirt, and I think it came out pretty nice. It's got pixel art of the temple, the famous pagoda, as well as some of the murals from the temple that are done in pixel art style. Alright, the last video that I released on the Mushin Martial Culture channel is episode 7 of the ongoing Secrets of Xing Yi Quan series. As I mentioned, it's an over 2-hour long documentary that I'm breaking up into parts and releasing it. I've been doing it for quite a while. It's a very labor-intensive project, from the translation to the timing to the subtitling to adding of the relevant information when they're discussing things, because sometimes they don't give any background or more information. And additionally, a lot of it was filmed in Shanxi, where there's a very heavy Shanxi accent, and that takes a little bit more time to sit and translate correctly, because a lot of the times the on-screen Chinese subtitles either are incorrect or don't fully capture what the person is saying. Nonetheless, I'm enjoying doing this because I think it sheds a nice, interesting perspective on the subject and also presents things that aren't generally known in the West as much about the art of Xing Yi Quan. And we are at episode 7, and we're going smoothly and nicely nicely through that. Now, I want to give everybody a heads up on another project that I have planned that's in connection to this series. And I'm happy to announce that there's going to be a series of discussions, three-way discussions between myself, Jarek Szymanski, the great Jarek Szymanski, and John Nicklin, who's been on the podcast. Actually, they've both been on the podcast before. Jarek is basically a giant in the realm of Chinese martial arts, a very early pioneer who came to China. Go listen to his podcast if you want to know about him. John Nicklin is also a practitioner in the art of Xing Yi Quan, a deep practitioner of Song style who came to China and was training at the source as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to review some of the earlier episodes. Each one of these Redux series, it'll be the Secrets of Xing Yi Quan Redux. We're going to focus on particular episodes and certain things that were discussed in them to either go deeper into them or to even contradict some of the things that were presented if we feel that they weren't presented correctly, honestly, or fully, etc., or if there's problems with something that was presented. And we're going to go into detail as to why. So I think it's going to be really interesting for people to go even deeper into the background, history, and ideas of Xing Yi Quan, where it came from, and, to clarify some of the aspects presented in the series. So it's a two-phase thing. Watch the series and then watch the Redux episodes. We hope to do the first episode fairly soon. It'll be focused on the early episodes, and then we'll continue from there. So that's something to look forward to. As always, you can support the podcast by going over to the Mushin Martial Culture website and purchasing items from our store. That's one way to support us. I have from apparel to rare and custom-made training equipment, including traditional solid steel swords and weaponry, as well as some of the training equipment or rather apparel that I myself like to train in. Not easy to get some of this stuff. Some of my preferred items for the arts of Xing Yi Quan and Baguazhang that I think are highly suited to their practice, as well as other things such as wall art. There are casual wear. There is training equipment as well that I also have custom made. For example, our iron body conditioning brush, which is something that's not as easy to get in general. I have them specifically made, and they have been extremely popular with the public, and for good reason. It's a great training tool. So go on and check that out. Another way to support us, as always, is through our Patreon site. We have 2 support tiers, and then we also have the 3rd tier, the Huajin Online Learning Program, which the aforementioned episodes that I released to the public on our Huajin channel are drawn from. The online program has been running for 4 years now. It's got a library of over 200 in-depth lessons covering all aspects of the arts of Xing Yi Quan and Baguazhang, from internal practices to health and Qigong, internal conditioning, other skill developing practices, down to the individual techniques and drills, forms, weaponry, background, history, and much more. So it's a very in-depth program, and of course applications, functional usage as well, and how to develop these skills. The goal of the program is to present these arts as fully as possible in a professional manner and in-depth manner. That is my goal. And I take a lot of time and effort to ensure that I not only plan lessons, film them in depth, multiple angles, put online, on-screen translations, supplemental training, documentation to assist you, and of course the online community and feedback videos. So it's a fully in-depth program that I welcome any and everybody to come out and check. All right, let's get into today's episode. Today's guest is Nick Gracenin. Now, Nick Gracenin is once again quite an early pioneer in the realm of Chinese martial arts in North America, but in the West in general. He not only was one of the standout practitioners of Chinese martial arts from his younger days, he was involved in the old school sport wushu that when it was first emerging, which was quite well entwined with the traditional practices and had content that was truly representative of Chinese martial arts on a competitive stage. And he trained with the great Bo Sim Mark. That's right, Donnie Yen's mom, and she was teaching in the States. That's where she was teaching in Boston. Gracenin is her protege. He studied under her, developed his skills under her, and became a world-class practitioner of Chinese martial arts. I mean, I remember back in the day watching his performances, reading about him, and just being in awe at the level that a non-Chinese in the West was able to attain. So I've been, wanting to have this interview for a long time. I've known him for a while. We've met before, even in Beijing, had a wonderful afternoon drinking tea and chatting many years ago. So, this is a long overdue interview, and with it, I give you Nick Gracenin. Now, I had so much more planned for this interview. I wanted to ask a bunch of other questions that we didn't get to. And I thought, well, it was then best to leave that for possibly part 2 of this podcast sometime in the future. But in the meantime, you can hear his thoughts and history on the art and his practices and experience. So let's get right into it. I give you Nick Gracenin. And welcome to the Drunken Boxing Podcast. Very honored once again by my guest today. I'm an old fan. I try not to say that I'm old, but I'm an old fan of this person. He's a pioneer in the Chinese martial arts and somebody that I looked up to all my life. So very happy to have you, Nick Gracenin. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Byron. It's an honor to be here and to step up and join the esteemed company of so many of my peer group. And gosh, I've been a big fan of yours and of this project since it started.
Oh,
and congratulations to you for really carrying on the promotion and basically, I guess, revelation of Chinese martial arts to a lot of people, especially in the West, who haven't had the good fortune, as we both have, of being in the mainland and studying with a lot of great teachers, and especially having a really good shifu to follow.
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. It's, like I said in the beginning here, pioneers like you, like Andrea, the people that just went ahead and broke ice where no one had gone before, that we owe a lot of our paths that we followed. So, you guys were trailblazers. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, that was me standing on the shoulders of some giants, like my teacher, and just, I guess, the curiosity of, okay, what's it like over there? Because, at the time, there was so much curiosity, so much interest in Chinese martial arts here in the States. And I got swept up in that in college, and it continues to this day, I have to say.
Well, that's good. I mean, coming back to having you on the podcast, I actually wanted to have you on for quite a while now. And more recently, I got a few requests from people when I said, who would you like to hear from? Who would you like to see or hear their story on the podcast? And quite a few people sent me messages saying, Nick Gracenin, Nick Gracenin. I was like, all right, so definitely the time to do it now. So let's get into your story because, how did you start getting into Chinese martial arts? How did it all begin? Like, tell us about your background.
Well, I started off doing Japanese-style martial arts because growing up in a small town in Western Pennsylvania, there was not a very large Asian community, basically one family that had a small Chinese restaurant, and which hardly anyone went to because in my town, they thought that ethnic food was Italian.
Oh,
So,
Italian.
yes. Oh, yeah, we had both kinds of music, country and Western.
Ah.
So, anyway, we had, a lot of servicemen who had gone to Japan and Okinawa and Korea in their course of service, coming back to the States and then starting to open dojos. And, a few of these I was fortunate to study with a couple of people who were just genuinely good people as well as being good martial artists. And so I came up doing sort of, I'm going to say it's not pure, but close Shotokan style karate.
Okay.
And a little bit of Kodokan judo and some Chinese Kempo, which was a big thing in the States. I'm sure you're aware of people like Ed Parker and Tracy and so on, and Serio. And so we had all of these, individuals who had started martial arts schools, excuse me, around the country. And the father of karate in America, as he's widely acclaimed, Robert Trias. And so one of Trias's big accomplishments was creating the U.S. Karate Association.
Okay.
And so I was a member of that. And because of that, I got to see the very first person doing Chinese Kung Fu live was another USKA member, and in fact, a very prominent one, Army veteran, James Cook.
Okay.
And Cook, or as a lot of people called him, Cookie Monster, was just the epitome of a great martial artist, and still is. I looked up to him and basically idolized him as a preteen boy, seeing him compete at an open karate tournament, which of course at that time, that's all we had was an open format. There was no event that was just Chinese style. So James Cook won the black belt kata. He won the black belt sparring. He won the black belt weapons, just dominated the whole event. He was just phenomenal, and a very strong, very fast, very charismatic guy. And he had studied mantis, a variation of northern mantis in Korea, which of course, there's a lot of exchange there between the Shandong Peninsula and Korea.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot of Koreans who do mantis, and James had studied with some Korean teachers who had studied with Chinese teachers.
Right.
And he brought that back to the States, and that's what I first saw, other than Bruce Lee's movies and David Carradine's very odd kung fu in the TV show, which I loved it at the time. I was totally enthralled, like 10 or 11 years old. And to look back at those choreographed fight scenes now, I go, oh my.
Well, to be honest, there's a lot of those first generation kind of in the West kind of TV shows and movies that made a huge impact and really inspired a lot of us. And again, if you look back at it now, you're going to be somewhat disappointed, but that doesn't matter. It's the spark that lit the fire, so it did its job.
Exactly, 100%. And then, of course, for me being the Kung Fu brother of Donnie Yen and seeing how he choreographs fight scenes and what he does in film, it's like, oh yeah, we've come a long, long way.
Well, I mean, you remember when there wasn't the infiltration of the Hong Kong action scene in Western movies and in the Western limelight. I mean, if you look at those fight scenes from back then, and I loved growing up and watching Chuck Norris movies. I loved that growing up. But if you watch them now, you think it's in slow motion compared to what we're used to, So, that's just where we come from and how we've evolved and improved over time, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think everything has, to a degree. That's been my experience meeting a lot of the Chinese style practitioners around the country, and then eventually becoming a competitor on the U.S. team and going to China so many times and being on the IWF executive committee and meeting people from everywhere.
Right.
Chinese martial arts has made lots of strides, and then we also have some things that we just went off track, and it's a shame. My cohort, we were able to get Chinese Wushu entered into GAFE, the General Assembly of International Sport Federations,
right?
And then that was our doorway to be accepted into the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, both of which we achieved.
Right.
And then after that, the ball just got dropped. And it's so disappointing to think that we were so close. And the 2008 Olympics, it's like, that was the chance. And
that came and went.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys started all of that, and GAFE became Sport Accord, as it's called now. And, that recognition was in 2002 in Salt Lake City, wasn't it? With the IOC.
Yes.
So, I mean, America and yourself had a huge role in a huge influence on that drive and that movement. And I remember back in those early days how exciting it was to see Chinese martial art getting recognized on that level. And then the whole Olympic bid started for 2008. And, I was still training as an athlete at that time. And it went on for so long that, by the time I became a judge, then I became the technical and judges representative for the continuation of the Olympic bid. And I did, presentations in Lausanne and St. Petersburg a couple of times and in Tokyo. And here we are all these years later, and it's not in, but not just that. I feel that the direction for the last 10 years has, as you said, has just been very misguided. And that might be
Yes.
adding to the difficulty of where it is and what it, where it's going to go. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I never knew, going back to my early days, I never knew what this journey was going to show me, what kind of exposure I'd have. And, I owe all of it really to Bosa Mark, to my
Right.
Shifu. But, you know, uh, prior to really getting in the door, so to speak, Bosa Mark gave me a foundation. And I think that's the big thing that if through this kind of medium or any other any advice as I get older and want to um, pass down whatever I can to the next generations, it's train the fundamentals so hard that there's never any question. And
Right.
that was, for me, all of the exposure to professional teachers along the way. I still kind of pinch myself and wow, back in the '80s, wushu was just
Different.
starting.
But also it
Yeah, and
was
it was
different. And the foundations
yeah.
that you mentioned were
Mm,
very solid. I don't want to say that, I don't want to talk too badly of what's going on today, but it's the foundations that, like, your generation, and I learned from people of your generation as well, the older generation, the basics that we did are universal basics. They're
yes.
they're basics that are not just universal in terms of what they develop for your body, but then also there's a foundation that is stemming from a classical root in those basics.
Mm,
And if you, as you said, if you've got that strong, then when you go on and whatever avenue you're starting to learn and study in, whichever style it may be, whether it's northern, southern, traditional, internal, external, it's only going to help you. But today, if you look at a lot of the basics, because the whole shift has changed post the Nandu rules, they don't have
mm,
time to focus on that because they need to spend all the time they have to develop jumping, turning, and all that ability. Otherwise, they're just not even in the ballpark to compete if they don't have that. And
right.
like, it is a huge difference because you can see it. You can see the difference in the spirit of
Mm,
wushu from the generation that you learned from, like Wush, Bosun, Mark, etc., and the spirit of what is being done in the more recent times. And I don't blame the public, to be honest, for not wanting to watch today. Really,
mm,
I sit and, back in the day, I thought, is it advertising? What needs to be done? But they're just not interested, even if you show them, and I don't blame them. And it's about time people realized what that is and why they're not watching the newer performance of sport wushu. We need to
yeah.
have a good, honest discussion about that.
Yeah, and that's true even in China.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, I keep seeing, people send me videos and I pull things up on YouTube and Youku and look at current competitions, and there's no one in the stands.
No
And
one.
it's been that way for what, 15, 20 years.
Exactly.
Hardly anyone is in the stands.
And they don't
Why are
need
the
they don't even need to fill the stands. That's the sad part
yeah,
about it. Because they get
yeah,
the government funding irrespective. They don't,
yes.
it's not about the popularity. The athletes, that's why it's a very strange development path. And the strangeness
Mm,
of the development path is that we're used to sports growing organically. As a
mm,
kid, there's kids that play games. Those games became sports that they enjoyed, or the games that they play as kids are sports. They go into a school system where they're doing it as a hobby, then they're doing it as an after school activity, then they're doing it a little bit more seriously as a school or a city kind of league thing that's going on when they get into high school. Then it just grows and they become professional athletes. It's a very clear organic growth process. But what we have in China is none of that. They just take a bunch of kids and say, "This is our sport, and you're doing that." It doesn't matter if it's popular or not, or if the kids are interested in it. And that's why when it gets to the highest level, having the spectators watch, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect them in any shape or form. They've got the funding. And I remember talking to a lot of traditional teachers in Beijing over the years. When there was an event, even a major event in Beijing, international, I'd say, "Oh, well, there's this competition going on over here and here." And they're like, "What? Oh, that jumpy stuff. It's got nothing to do with us." And I'm like, that's a shame. That's a shame because you're all doing Chinese martial arts and there's just such a clear divide. And again, it's not their fault. It just is because of what's happened. There's just such a clear divide that you don't even want to go look at it. It's that bad.
Yeah.
So that's sad.
Yes, it is. It's quite sad. And I have to say, I moved from the little town in Pennsylvania. I moved to DC about 17 years ago.
Did you take both types
And
of music with you?
well, no, now it's more classical and jazz, but
Okay.
anything to drown out the noise of American politics.
Oh, right.
But and living here, that's all we hear. So yeah. Anyway,
Man, we hear about it and we're not even living there. That's all we hear about.
oh Lord. Sorry, I apologize.
It's entertaining at times.
Yeah, until you're living it, Lord.
Right.
But anyway, we had the good fortune. I came to the area and was staying at my sister-in-law's house in Virginia, and literally 5 minutes away was a Jiaoga Kung Fu school. And Jiaoga is one of the styles. Zhoujia is one of the styles here in the Mid-Atlantic area that's very, very popular. It was really huge at one time. It's still there, and all because of a really famous, iconic figure in U.S. martial art, Chinese martial art history, Dean Chin. And so his students and their students have been popularizing, and two of them had a school in Virginia close to my sister-in-law's home. And just out of nowhere, I hear through the grapevine that one of their teachers, after Master Qin had passed away, one of their teachers was from Shanghai, Lu Junhai. So Lu Junhai is the son of Lu Zhenduo, whom he inherited the Mizongquan and Qingping sword from his father. And Madame Wang Zhurong, who's one of my mentors, always told me, Nick, your sword is good. You should really study with Lu Zhenduo in Shanghai. If you get a chance to go there, study with him. He will really help your sword reach another level. And I never had the chance to. But then his son shows up. We're talking the first month that I was living in Virginia. His son shows up and is teaching a workshop.
Wow.
So,
well, you know what that's called, right?
Study.
Chinese,
Oh, yeah.
Yuan Fen, just destiny, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And he and I hit it off very well. Very, very talented. He's one of those people that you look at and you go like, wow, I want to be him when I grow up. He's so good. And we spoke frankly after he, got to know me a bit. He opened up. We spoke very frankly about the state of wushu outside and inside China. And, I said, I really don't like the new direction.
Right.
I don't see the purpose. It's like such a mishmash of acrobatics and almost, like street performance. And like you would see, young guys busking in the streets of Paris or London doing acrobatic stuff just to get those tips and the applause. And it's like, is that what wushu has turned to? And Lu Junhai said, it made a very strong impression on me. He said, I actually don't like it either, but Wushu is big enough for everyone. And if that's the thing that will bring people in and get young people interested in Chinese martial art again, then it can have a good purpose. So I don't think we should criticize it. But
Right.
I haven't seen that come to fruition
No,
in
it hasn't.
17
I
years.
was in the same mentality back in the day. I thought, okay, just treat it like
Yeah.
an advertising arm, and then if people get involved and then they want to go deeper into real traditional or real, more deep practices, this is at least one way to entice them in. But the
Mm.
results are the opposite. It's the same when we, like, I was pushing to have Xingyi and Bagua included in the World Championships as extra events. The
Mhm.
idea was, all right, you've got these people that do long fist and nanchuan and all of that, but what if there's room available now from the MushinMartialCulture.com online store is retro-themed Shaolin Temple and Shaolin Monk apparel, featuring images of the temple and famous mural images of the fighting monks, all rendered in pixel art style. With 2 funky t-shirt designs to choose from, get yours today. Worldwide shipping available. Order today from MushinMartialCulture.com. To include people from the same federations in the same country. Now they'll have to go and look into the traditional schools, which usually separate themselves from
Mhm.
they just usually have nothing to do with the federation, or they have nothing to do with the sport in any shape or form. Maybe this way they'd have to go look at these practitioners in the differing places, and they would be the people that would then participate and bring bring the country on the global stage for those styles, and then start to get a little bit of cohesion between the different the sports schools and the traditional schools. But what ended up happening was, unfortunately, what I had feared might happen was that all that happened was the sports schools were not going and pulling people from the traditional schools and really trying to develop those styles amongst their so-called representative athletes. For Xingyi, they just go grab a Nanchuan athlete and quickly teach him a form. And then
Mm.
for the Bagua, they just quickly get a Tai Chi athlete and teach them a form. And they wouldn't have the fundamentals. They'd be doing everything incorrectly. They'd just be muscling it out without the correct technique. And when you've got 20 people like that, and no one's really doing good quality basics in their Xingyi or their Bagua, somebody has to win. And then anyway, somebody's going to win. And here we are. Then the same people are now running back and saying, I'm the Xingyi world champion. And it had the exact opposite effect that we
Yeah.
thought it would have, and it's actually become a more deterrent for the traditional people to think. But I think they've actually removed the event since I left in any case. But that was what happened in the first couple of years. So, yeah, we had all good intentions and ideas, and like you were just mentioning, the teacher from Shanghai was saying similar ideas, but as you said, fruition, that didn't happen.
Yeah. No, and it seems to me that what had happened years ago is happening again through a different lens. Meaning that years ago, back in the day when I was a karate practitioner, looking at James Cook do kung fu and going, God, that's amazing. How does he do that? And with that broadsword thing, and all of that. So I just was blown away. And we would compete very, very strongly. In fact, the first thing that made me decide, I really want to pursue this was competing against Master Cook at a tournament in Cleveland, Ohio, and we tied in the forms division.
Okay.
And we tied again, and then we got to the third time that we tied, and he just said, young man, today's your day. I'm done.
Oh, wow.
And I went, no, 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 you can't do that. Can't, please don't do that. He said, no, I'm bowing out to you because you earned it.
Wow.
And and I thought, okay, if this guy is in any way, shape, or form thinking that I have some level of real skill, then I need to pursue it.
Right.
And that's what did it for me. But going further, at that time, and I became a teacher so that I could practice more. Right, that's a big thing. Right, like I could have gone the regular 9 to 5 way, but even right out of college, I just started teaching as much as I could. Eventually, it became a full-time gig, and has been to this day. So it's really been a unique experience for me. But as a coach, as a teacher, during those early days, I would train someone. They would do such a good job at an open tournament where there was karate and kung fu and taekwondo and other things, and judges who didn't know what the heck they were doing, meaning what my students were doing. I couldn't understand the routines. Just thought like I have no idea what that is, and would downgrade them.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't place. They'd be very embarrassed, very humiliated, feeling like they get their family to go to the event with them. Everybody's there. They're so pumped up. They know that they're doing really well and they're pushing, and then they just get smacked down. And so they often just lose motivation. And frequently I had students who were doing really well, and then they would just quit because there was no outlet for them to go and get a really good, solid adjudication. And then on the other hand, I'd have sometimes a student go out and, because their form had a tornado kick in it, or because they had a butterfly or something like this, the judges were so impressed with the flashy moves that they would get first place, even though they were sloppy and just not very clear. And then those people became sometimes, not often, but sometimes uncoachable, because I'm a champion. I got a gold medal. I've got the award. Look at my 6-foot trophy. And which was the height of fashion at the time.
Yeah, I remember those.
So
look, they had look. I mean, I'm not against competition. I mean, a lot of people misunderstand me. I'm very much for competition, but I believe very clearly that the rules have to guide the development. So the rules have to be used as a training method to make athletes train, or practitioners train and focus on things that you find are important in the art. And if your rules are disconnected from the importance of the practice, you're going to lose the entire practice. It's going to become an empty shell. And with that, the judges have to be knowledgeable on what they're looking at. So it's all a cohesive kind of harmonious thing between rules, judges, and the art. And you use them, and you have to continuously adjust them. You've got to put them in the rules and then see what the effect is after a year. And if it's the right direction, tweak it. If it's the wrong direction, change it. So and they don't do that. They can see there's a mistake, and they're just putting their head down, closing their eyes, and running down that road. And it's funny you mentioned about. I remember, and I'm not going to mention names, but just after I was no longer involved, the following year there was a World Championships, and I tuned in to watch the Xingyi and the Bagua, and I remember this girl doing Bagua, and she started walking, and she was opening her crotch and walking sideways, and all for dramatic effect to look like she's doing Tang Ni Bu well. She's overstepping, but because of that, she's opening her knees, and it's just not even in line with the basics that you learn for proper stepping, right? It's like everything's out the window. And I thought, okay, hopefully somebody can see this, because that's like, that should be what you're looked at first and foremost as soon as you're starting to do Bagua. Can you step properly? But I hear the commentator who was used for the event say, wow, look how good that stepping is. And I thought, no, we're screwed. We're screwed. No one knows it's like the blind leading the dumb. No one knows what's going on. And the champion will lead the next generation to emulate that. So it's like, it's a vicious circle. So, yeah. But I wanted to ask you something about James Cook.
Yes.
Apart from the name Cook, why was he called Cookie Monster? Did he enjoy cookies?
Oh, no. I don't know. He was, and he still is. He's such a great guy who suffered. He was in Vietnam, got Agent Orange, so much illness, so much joint pain. And here's the thing. This guy who was at the peak of the U.S. Karate Association and one of the real pioneers of Chinese martial arts, showing up and competing and winning at the open circuit tournaments. And then he he uh, uh, he and I spoke on the phone. This is maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago, and he had long since retired and hadn't been competing at anything, but he was uh, living in a small town somewhere like southern Ohio, northern West Virginia. So out there in the area that I grew up in,
With the
and
two kinds of music.
yeah, oh yeah, and I mean there I think they only had one, and and James is actually a very good musician too, by the way. But uh, there's um, there's a Wing Chun school in the area, and I said, so have you been still keeping up your training? And he said, I'm a white belt. I started taking Wing Chun classes, and I went to this school, and I said, I want to learn this.
Cool.
I've never done it before. Can I start? And they said, well, oh, Mr. Cook, I mean, you're so well known. And he was like, no, 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 don't treat me like Mr. Cook. I want to start from the beginning and learn it the right way. There's no other way for me to do it. And he became a white belt in this school and started learning from the beginning with no special treatment, no special attention or undue respect. He said, no, I treat me like everybody else. I just want to learn the skill. I'm not interested in any of that. And after you've been around for a while, all of the, the belts and the titles and the certificates and everything, they become like, oh yeah, this is all promotional stuff for some reason. Not always. I mean, I had a couple certificates that I was awarded that are near and dear to my heart, but still, it's because of the relationship with those people and the work that I did to earn it. And I think martial art, and this is going back to why the tournaments didn't work out well and why they're not working out so well now anymore, is that it's become mostly about the money. And so the more people that we can get to come to this event and register and pay for it, that's great.
Yeah, I get
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Right. And so, and that's where you get the people who are, I'm the world champion at this. I'm thinking to myself, I mean, when I medaled in China at those early days competitions in Xi'an and Tianjin and Hangzhou, and even in Baltimore in '95, when I medaled, I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, there's like a zillion guys in China training right now who are on the B team who could kick my butt.
No,
So
I know.
there's no feeling in my mind. I'm not going to allow myself to feed my ego and be delusional and think I got a silver medal at Worlds. I'm the #2 spear guy in the world.
On the planet.
You're not? Yes. Oh, right. Yeah. In the galaxy, I have the best long tap. No, never mind.
Well, I would say that
ridiculous.
The events you were competing at that time were actually more worthwhile in what you were achieving. It meant more than today. So nothing to look down upon. That's all good stuff. So yeah. I mean, I remember some of your videos from those events in China, and I've got a couple still from those days. And you were really good. So never mind from I've got a video I think of you doing Xingyi Quan as well. I think you were doing it in Xi'an, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And that was a really good performance. It was a really solid Xingyi Quan performance. And you don't even see that today from guys that are the world champion. So
It's a shame.
No, I mean, down to it's just a different time, and it really is a different focus, different fundamentals, and we're talking about this, and it's like it comes back to what we were just saying. Both the rules and the judges have a lot to do with how the sport goes. But the people on top, if they don't have the right mind as well, they're not going to see any problems with what's going on. So nothing will change, So, I'm more at the moment, and I've, in the last 6 years, kind of come to the conclusion that the real promotion and legacy of Chinese martial arts is going to be left in the hands of the people that are not so involved in the organizations, but are deep in their art and they're teaching them to groups within their own small community and getting these people to improve their life, to enrich them culturally, physically, mentally, spiritually, and hand down a really solid practice that has been, these arts have existed for such a long time, not because somebody has promoted them in a competition, but because they have value. So at this point in my life, that's what I've been trying to spend all my energy on, and it's things that you've been doing for a good number of years, and I think that is a lasting legacy, bigger than anything else. It's the handing this down that is a life enriching. You could be on a desert island completely alone and get this practice to enrich your life.
Yes.
Whereas if you're just doing one-sided, single-dimensional sports stuff without the competition, you quit. You don't do it, and that's not why we're doing it. So there's a lot of value in these arts, and I'm positive that I think the Western world in particular is starting to see this a lot more and cherish it, and they're actually seeking out those types of teachers and those types of practices. So I think
Well,
it
and
is,
then
yeah.
yeah, no, in no small part because of things like this podcast and other promotional things that really help not only educate but also unify. So there's a lot of people that I've met over these years, many years, that I just went, why aren't we communicating? Why aren't we
Mm.
together? Why are we not? And that was my thing. Dave Cater, who was the editor of Inside Kung Fu magazine, uh, accorded me this honor of being Inside Kung Fu's Man of the Year in
Oh, wow.
2005. And having read that magazine since the 70s, when David Carradine was on the cover, I was blown away by that. And
Well, that's an amazing
and
accomplishment.
well, the big thing was that in the article, the little blurb he wrote about me, he said, when other people were clamoring about getting the best seat at the table, Nick was the guy who said he was just happy to be at the dinner.
Yeah.
And he echoed what I've said all the time at all of the events in all of the different organizations that I've been part of,
Mm.
from the Eastern U.S. Kung Fu Federation to the U.S. Wushu Federation to the U.S. Chinese Martial Arts Council to the USA Wushu Kung Fu Federation, all of it, and even up to the IWUF, that
Right.
a rising tide raises all the ships.
Mm.
If we can unify, we can do better. And having come from the Japanese style background, I witnessed how there were contending factions in every organization. That's always the case.
Yeah.
But they would come together and support one another for a major cause, like getting Olympic status or doing something that would really help promote their art or their sport. And we would always have to basically pull teeth to get people to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but there's always this, and maybe it's because as martial artists, we deal with contention and we
Yeah.
deal with, opposition and violence. And so, having done that basically my whole life, I mean, I'm almost 70 and I started training when I was about 11. So, I feel like, after 5 decades of doing this, I don't have that much need for contention. In
Yeah.
fact, what I'm looking for, what I hope is, and I was a serious competitor. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I loved competing and enjoyed it, but you know, that's for fun. And I would finish a competition, and then James Cook and I would sit down and eat. And I would go in China, do the competition, and then get a private class with Jiaping the next day so that I could learn his sphere form.
Oh, do you know
Like this.
what Jiaping became?
Oh, I know, I
Huh.
know. Yeah,
It's
and it
quite
blew
the
my
inverse.
mind.
It's the inverse of, well, both yours and my background. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I mean, when somebody told me that, and I'm like, "What the? You're kidding me!"
And
And
he's not a
but
nobody. He's quite high up there.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, and just blew my mind.
Well,
You know,
for the listeners, maybe you want to talk a little bit about who Jiaping is. So,
oh yeah, Jiaping was like the god of spear and straight-sword for competitive wushu in the 80s. So similar to like Zhao Changjun in Long Fist and Di Tangchen, um, Jiaping from Anhui team who had, and this is another thing about that era, you could always see like, this team, Anhui always had good spear and good straight-sword
yeah.
because they had coaches like Chen Dao Yin and just great people. Each team had a kind of specialty, and so you knew that like the Yunnan team with Xia Guozheng there, they were going
Yeah.
to do really well with Xingyi and Bagua and
Yeah.
Taiji, and other things would be good, but that was their strong suit. And it's just like the major universities. They're noted even today for, aside from all of the political stuff, they are noted for having excellence in a certain department and
Yeah.
another department. This college is great for this topic. So
Yeah.
the teams were like that. I loved spear, and I was grateful to get to go to Nanjing in the 80s, 1985, and train at Nanjing and get coaching on spear. From the team that was like, oh my gosh, the movie Yao's Young Warriors, and all of those Nanjing team guys doing spear at the same time on film in the with the odd haircuts and the old outfits was amazing. I just loved that. Right, so those teams all had their own specific things that they did. They were able to take it to a high level, and now it's just like this. I don't know. It's homogenized kind of general thing. I love going to events where I can sit back, like, going to New York City competitions back in the day and watching like Ralph Mitchell do phenomenal Southern Mantis, and then at the same event watching Gao Xian do Fanzitren, and
Right.
then somebody else gets up and does this incredible Tai Chi, and there's Bagua, and there's Xingyi, and there's Baji, and there's praying mantis. There's all kinds of stuff, and everybody's just like, yeah, let's all go, let's all go have dinner later and all that, and it was fantastic. There was the feeling for me that, oh, I found my people. I found that this is the group that I want to be with, and it resonated because that's what we love. Right. That's the thing. Like we all have the same kind of passion for this. And it was what I saw growing up with other friends who got into a sport or got involved in some endeavor, and they found their group. Like, man, that's what you want to do. In my area, wow, you want to play football? Man, football and basketball were huge there. Baseball, not so much. But then I moved to Boston to train with Bose Mark, and gosh, people in Boston are crazy about baseball. I mean, Red Sox everywhere.
Right.
So, just looking at that and seeing and thinking to myself, what can we do to help promote Chinese martial art in that same kind of facility, that same kind of build it up from the grassroots? And so when I was in the IWF, in the early 80s, I made comments that I think some people didn't appreciate because I said openly, why are we not doing, in each country, I said, why are we not doing grassroots development? And I said this to the members of the U.S. Council and the USA WKF, et cetera. We need to have a youth training program. We need to do like other sports like gymnastics and have a national youth team. We need to have a set program that helps kids and their coaches not just look down on people and say like, oh well, that person's just a coach from that like little Western Pennsylvania town. They don't need any help, or they're beyond it. They're never going to get it. Right. And so like, why would you treat people that way if you want to grow the sport? It's ridiculous. We should be supporting one another. And so, I suggested those things. It didn't really take. Many other people just like, no, I'm going to teach the way I teach. And it's like, okay, that's good. But what you end up with is little enclaves of people who practice and then don't interact with one another. And when An Tianrong, my Kung Fu uncle, came to the States, and he was the all-around champion of China in the 1970s.
Yeah.
So, it's like just phenomenal
You've got a lot
all-around
of really,
athlete.
really great old coaches, and even some
Oh,
of the
I
newer.
did.
But there was a period
Yeah,
of time that you guys just had the best of the best coming to live in the States.
we
And
did.
I just remember looking at this thinking, well, if the Federation leverages these coaches, it's going to be really, really a good result. And that never
Yeah.
happened. That never
No,
happened.
no, the
So,
best we did. The U.S. team. I'm very proud of our efforts in the 80s. Especially 86 in Tianjin.
hmm.
Philip Wong from San
Yeah,
Francisco, Kenny Perez from Arizona, uh, uh, Ken Goodman from New York, Greg Walraven from New Jersey. And I had two of my students on the team with me, Caesar Britton from Cleveland and Randy Hegstad from Virginia, who were both coming to Pennsylvania to train with me all the time. Randy
hmm.
actually lived there. And, Philip and I had a moment at that competition where we looked at one another and I said, we have a chance to shut out everyone else in the
Yep.
all around. And we did it. And Philip got second in the all around, and I was .03 behind him in third place.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, we beat out the Japanese who were good, and the Mark Batt from England who was really good,
Hmm.
and Billy. Oh gosh, I forgot his last name. From Canada, who was really good.
Right.
William and Alice, I just remember from the Canadian team, who were good athletes. And for Philip and I to achieve our goal and get second and third, because nobody's going to touch Zhao Changjun.
Yeah.
So we're like, we're in awe of him. We're happy to stand in his light on the podium. But it was amazing. And
And
then
even
after
he
that,
would,
it
even
just went down.
he was teaching in Princeton for some years, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he also said quite frankly, very publicly, that he did not really agree with the way that wushu was going.
Yeah.
And his teacher, Bai Wenxiang,
Yeah.
was here in the DC area for years,
Yeah.
and he just could not make it. I loved him. I loved his wife. We performed together at the Chinese embassy in DC. We had some very serious talks. It was just so difficult for him. But going back to Master An Tianrong had such a difficult time getting here in the States and teaching. And when the reason he ended up staying with me, I found out he was living at a motel in Cleveland, cleaning rooms to
Wow.
support himself. And I'm like, this is a guy who with Man Huifeng, whom the very
Yeah.
famous professor from Beijing Tianxue,
Yeah.
An Tianrong and Man Huifeng were the people who taught the first generation Beijing team their basics.
Yeah, and Men Huifeng is he's a Chojiao Fanzi specialist.
Yes.
He was one of Wu Binlou's disciples. My teacher also studied with Wu Binlou. These are people that had genuine knowledge, like real skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. An Tianrong was the favorite student of Chang Chenfeng, Zhang Wenguang's teacher.
Right.
Chang Chenfeng used to look at An Tianrong and say, he was a young boy at the time. It's like, okay, you come on, do again, like us all the time. And those guys, Anlacher told me, he said he can't understand why it's like this in the current wushu diaspora, that people are in their own little groups. He said, like dogs in a kennel, and then they bark and bark and bark at one another. Then if someone comes along and has meat, they follow them. And as soon as the meat is gone, then they go back to their kennel and start barking again.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole thing. Why we could not somehow join together, and it's a shame. I think, modern wushu especially got off a little bit on the wrong foot in North America, because the pioneers, the three real pioneers, and I appreciate you for calling me a pioneer, and perhaps I am to some degree, but the three real pioneers in North America were Bosun Mark, Roger Tong, and Anthony Chan. And the problem there was that, Anthony and Roger on the West Coast, they basically pissed off a lot of people in the traditional community. And
really?
So, they told people to their face, like, yeah, you're doing the old style and it's just, it's outmoded. Look at what they're doing in mainland China right now. It's fantastic. And you should, change and do this. And
available to order from the Mushin Martial Culture website is Liang Style Baguazhang Volume 1, Foundational Practices. Written by renowned 4th generation master Di Guoyong, this guide explores the foundational practices of Baguazhang. Within this volume, you will find historical aspects pertaining to the origins of Baguazhang, the development of the Liang style and the life of its founder, Liang Zhenpu, while tracing the art's evolution through successive generations. Master Di Guoyong also shares insights from his training under the legendary Li Ziming, offering a rare first-hand view into the Liang lineage. Volume 1 focuses on the foundational core practices of the Liang-style Baguazhang system. Essential techniques are explained clearly, building a solid base for both beginners and experienced practitioners. Key practices for mastering the Liang system are included, along with an in-depth study of the 8 fixed posture palms. Making use of modern technology and classical teaching, instructions are supported by detailed illustrations, photography, and video references to help readers grasp each movement confidently. Translated, co-authored, and edited by Byron Jacobs, a 5th-generation practitioner, this book delivers traditional knowledge in a modern, accessible format. Whether refining your skills, exploring Bagua's roots, or deepening your martial understanding, this volume is an essential resource for serious Chinese martial arts practitioners. Order yours today from mushinmartialculture.com.
Anthony dropped his whole life. He just changed his focus and sold his car and went to China. And he's a great guy. He's told me, he said he went to study at Beitida at the Sport University, and they gave him. And Anthony, by the way, was at the national circuit for karate, a national champion for especially his broadsword. And so he wrote the story in one of the magazines, so I don't mind sharing it. But he said, I got in front of this coach who was a broadsword specialist, and I just all out did my broadsword form, which I had won many grand championships with. And the coach said to him, I see. It looks something like a broadsword form. Perhaps when we're done working on it, other people will recognize it as well. It's like, oh. So, in the early days, we went through that period of just when you think you're getting good, the real thing comes there and makes you realize, oh yeah, you got a long way to go.
But actually, we want that. We want that throughout our lives. You want to see somebody that's like, holy, I've got other things to try to, aspire to. There's levels and levels upon levels, and then when you think you've raised the level, you see another one, and you're like, wow. So
yeah, and that was the thing. It's the curiosity and the drive that have always sparked me. Those early days too. I have to say very quickly that one of my very first sensei in a karate dojo was a good fighter. Not necessarily, looking in hindsight, not a great teacher. We did some things in that class that I believe ended up leading to me having double hip replacement.
Oh no!
So certain things that we did, and I didn't end up having double hip replacement because I used to do butterfly twist into splits or anything like that. I ended up having that because I spent so many hours and years doing bad training, kicking heavy bags, and
that's a very common thing.
Yeah, and it just caused so much damage. But this guy, who, I blessed him for giving me some foundation, but there were some things that were abusive. When you have a whole bunch of little boys in your class and you have them do ki practice, and so it's like you line up in your kibadachi in your horse stance and then get punched in the solar plexus or kicked and et cetera, to toughen you up and teach you character. It's like, no, that's just abuse. Let's call it what it is. I mean, if you're doing a little bit, the Pai Shan kind of stuff, hitting the body training, that has its purpose. But when you're doing that and the look in his eye, I may have only been a little kid, but I could see you're enjoying this. And that wasn't good, so I knew something was up. And that's also in the same dojo, the place that I first became a teacher, because I was invited at age 15 to come in and help with the kids class. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to be a teacher. And what happened was the sensei said, okay, get them started. And I go through the stuff that we would do in our class at maybe a little bit reduced level, while he was over on the sidelines kidding on their moms.
Oh, nice.
And I'm going, okay, this is really messed up in so many ways. And and then at some point, my father, who, of course I was 15, my dad picks me up and we're driving home, and he said, you got to go home early because you've got homework, but you're not training so much because you can't stay for the other classes. You're teaching, but I'm paying tuition for you to go teach.
Right.
And it seems to me like he's not, meaning the teacher, not even on the floor.
It's like taking an advantage
That's
of
right. And it was. And that happens. I mean, I've seen that story play out again and again and again with so many different people, including relatives who were involved in other martial arts. And they say, I ended up teaching for my master, and still paying tuition and not getting paid and not getting any classes or not getting any special instruction because I'm helping.
And you're not training.
What am I doing? Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and this is a problem because it's unregulated. I mean, Better Homes and Gardens magazine did an interview with me on the phone years and years ago, asking about selecting a martial arts school for your child. They had seen some article in the New York Times that I was mentioned in, and said, okay, we want to contact that guy. So they contacted me out of the blue. And when I said that you don't have to have child safety clearances nor a criminal record check to open a martial arts studio in the States, they lost it. The journalist I was speaking to said, I really want you to say that to my editor. And so I ended up doing that. They put that in the piece, and I was flooded with letters from mostly moms who were outraged and wanted to know what they could do, or could I give them advice, and could I help them find a school, et cetera. And it was a mess. So because we don't have regulation, it's just ridiculous. Any other sport, there's got to be a regulatory body. We do have a national governing body, but we don't do anything with it on those terms. We're not developing a children's training program. We're not developing grassroots. We don't pay attention to the smaller schools, or, the little quote, unquote teachers who are just in their area. Yeah. We just expect them to rise, and we expect our judges to know what they're doing without training them. The people are not teaching judges. They're certainly not paying judges. So, if you go to judge at a competition, you're lucky to get a hotel room. Yeah. And maybe a food voucher for some box lunch or something like that. Right. And, I'm like, no. So, I pulled away from all of that years ago, mostly because my wife became disabled, but also because it's like, if I'm going to take any time away from my family, it is not going to be for BS. Right. I'm just not going to do it. I don't have time for it anymore. And for years, I would push to help out and do things, and to what end? So when my term expired at the International Federation, and shortly after that, I just said, I think I'm done. And I wasn't done training by a long shot.
Yeah.
I wasn't done teaching. I'm just done with competitions and politics and
Yeah, exactly.
going to an event and having people, give you a side eye and like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's just awful.
But going back a little bit, because you
Oh,
were
yeah,
there
sorry.
when things started moving with the
Mm.
national organization. Before we get into that, I'd really like to know about your path that led you to Bosim Mark
Mm.
and that.
Yeah. Oh, sure. We did start with that.
Yeah.
But, my first exposure to Chinese martial art, of course, was James Cook. But then when I went to university, I went to college at Penn State, and they had a kung fu club, which had recently diminished. The guy who created it, David Lee, whom I've never met, Dave Lee, and another person, Tim Chen, um, they they started this club. One of the club members, young guy from Hong Kong, Vince Cam, who was in ROTC, he and I met. We, got along really well, and nobody was teaching. And so Vince said, I really want to keep the club going. You're already a black belt and you know how to run a class. Do you want to teach?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want to learn this. And he goes, well, we can learn from, one another and so on. And we would do that. And so I started, this is how I became a quote unquote Sifu
Right.
by default. And the Penn State Kung Fu Club was great. We got it going. And I was just really hungry to learn more. And we saw a magazine article in Black Belt about this woman from China who had come to the States with the new wushu and was teaching in Boston. And so this is the 70s. Vince and I were both really motivated. We were doing a little bit of the Tian Shan Pai, which is very, very popular again in the Mid-Atlantic area
Yeah, I
because of a
remember.
few pioneers. And some of those people are still around. Willie Lin, his top student, Dennis Brown, who's still teaching and running events in the DC area. Huang Chenyang, who eventually started the Wushu Federation, who was in
Yes.
Cincinnati, Ohio. So we had this influence from that style, which all stemmed from the Nanjing Zongyang Wushu Guan, right?
Yeah, the
So,
Nanjing. So it's
yeah.
kind of an eclectic standardization mixed with some other stuff.
Yes, and so they had their style, and we were doing that. And Vince and I both wanted to study with Bosun Mark, so we made a phone call. It turns out that her family is originally from Taishan, and Vince's family also came from Taishan. So she invited us to come to Boston and visit the school, and we drove there from State College, Pennsylvania. And I remember getting there and feeling like, okay, we're here. It's the journey of a lifetime. And we arrived. We were really early. We went to Boston Common and practiced on the Common. And my first training in Boston was there. And actually, my last performance in Boston was also at the Boston Common.
Oh, wow.
But so it kind of went full circle.
Yeah.
But so we go to Bosun Mark's school, and which was her first school on Beach Street. Beautiful place, hardwood floor, huge ceiling, and I'm in the presence of this woman who's definitely. I mean, Donnie gets his charisma from his mom. There is no question about that. Right. So she is very charismatic. She's very straightforward. Even for Chinese, she's very straightforward. Right?
Okay.
So so never pulled any punches, would just tell you right up front. It's one of the things I loved about her, and so many of my teachers, and so I took the class. Vince and I were both training hard, and I'd done karate since I was a kid, so I could do splits to the side pretty easily. And we're doing the warm up, and we're doing the splits, and I'm all the way on the floor, and Sifu Mark is walking around looking at everybody, because she would keep us in the split for like 10-15 minutes.
Oh, really?
and so I'm sitting there in my split, just sweating it out, and nobody else is on the floor. Some people are close, and she looks at me and she goes, "Hi, Nick, your hip's so tight. You don't do stretching in Pennsylvania?"
Wow.
And at the time, I'm a young man. I'm thinking to myself, okay, either she's crazy or she's right.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one it is. It turns out, of course, that she was right. My position, the hip position in those splits was not good. And that's why I believe my hips eventually wore out after decades of that training. I just was challenged by her right away.
I know many Taekwondo people that had their hips replaced in older age from kicking the bag and incorrectly over the years. And
yes.
So yeah,
and
happens.
Actually, well, that's like a whole cohort of my era. Billy Blanks, the guy who created Taibo, who's also from my wife's hometown.
Okay.
And he was part of that whole group. Like, he and Cook fought a few times, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And Bill Wallace, the Superfoot. And Jean Frenette from Montreal, incredible kicker. And Cesar Borkowski, really old friend of mine from Toronto, also very, very talented Japanese-style martial artist. All 5 of us, double hip replacement.
Oh, wow.
I believe most everybody else dislocated after their operations. And, of course, because after you have that surgery, you've got to be pretty judicious about how you approach training. And, I have, knock wood, had my double hip replacements, not at the same time, but about 10, almost 11 years ago. And I'm feeling much better, and I'm doing splits again, and I'm, able to put my head on my toe again, and all of that. And, I used to do much better and, go negative and, kiss my toes easily and all that. But that is no longer the case. But I'm also almost 70. So and
I don't think you need to do that anymore. I think you can. I think your toes will be fine without you kissing them.
Yes, they know I love them. But when people say, like, of course, people have seen video of me doing things, and like butterfly twist split, or catching my foot over my head and falling in the splits. All the show-offy moves that are designed just to do that, just to get people to go, "Oh my gosh!" That kind of stuff, which is, it's not the hard stuff. It's not the good stuff. That kind of thing. When people say, "Oh, can you still do that?" I say, "Yeah, on video. It's right here."
Let me rewind that for you.
And I will say this: I had the good fortune to train with a lot of those iconic athletes of the golden era of wushu. The first generation Beijing team, the Nanjing team under Wang Jinbao, who was one of the first professional wushu coaches that I worked with, and Wang Jinbao blew me away, even on our first meeting. When he was introduced to me, and I got a chance to talk to him a little bit. He said, like, "Oh, why don't you and your friend come up, and we'll talk in my room. I want to rest a little bit." So we go to his hotel room, and he's sitting on the edge of the bed. And I had almost no Chinese at that time. And so my friend who's Chinese is translating, and we're talking. And he said, Master Wang is sometimes called the young monkey king, because his monkey style is very good. And I said, oh, really? And I said, I've never seen monkey style in person. He said, oh, and from a seated position on the bed, jumped up and squatted on the bed. So he jumped backwards into a squat position and then did a couple of the typical monkey shoulder shrug, head turn gestures, and then did a back tuck on the bed.
Without hitting the ceiling.
Right.
As one does. As one does.
And I'm like, holy shit. I mean, to have that much
Control.
body awareness. Yeah. I mean, yeah, just the fact that he knew where he was in space without having to worry about hitting the ceiling or hitting us or landing it was just amazing to me. Yeah. And then Roger Tong, who was one of his students and one of the pioneers here in the States, Roger told me the story of Wang Jinbao coaching, and he was, as many of them at that time did, smoking at the same time.
Yeah.
While he's got the cigarette in his mouth with an ash hanging on it, and he's telling the guy, after the aerial, land like this, and he just did an aerial cartwheel with the cigarette in his mouth, lands it, gets up and shows how he wants the guy to exit the move, and the ash never fell off.
Yeah, I've also come to a conclusion why so many people were smoking in China after living there for 15 years. Now it's much better, but when I first moved there, I truly believe it was the cigarettes were there to filter the air. So that it was healthier at that time. Now it's much better. The air is a lot cleaner, but back then, everyone smoked. And like you said, most of the coaches that have a cigarette hanging out of their mouth. So that was pretty normal.
Yeah. Oh God, awful. And the whole U.S. team in '86, we stayed at the Teachers College in Beijing when we were there training, getting ready for Tianjin, and all of us got bronchitis. And it was so cold, and we had the cold heat.
Yeah, so everywhere is burning coal. That's why
it was awful.
Yeah, you blow your nose at the end of the day and it's black.
Yeah, and
So
I remember going
to.
oh, thank God. I went to the hospital to get a B12 shot, and because I was so sick. And like you can see in that video of me competing that year doing Xingyi, I had 5 or 6% body fat. I was so thin and so drawn out from training so much, and I was just depleting. So they got me to the hospital for B12, and the doctor's like, okay, drop your pants and lean over this table.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a cabinet in front of me, which had a glass front, and I could see his reflection. And as he's getting the injection ready and starting to administer it, he had a cigarette in his mouth. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't happen in the States.
No,
not that much anyway.
No,
but so that whole era, like those guys, all of them. Going back to my original point, the early generation athletes, a lot of them. One in particular told me when I said, we should really help promote wushu. It's a beautiful sport. It's exciting. It's good for you. And she said, no, wushu is not good for you.
Yeah,
Wushu causes so many injuries. She said, I have so many injuries that are chronic and I cannot escape now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it's like, wow, yeah, if you trained that way that long, then yes.
Definitely.
And and then again, you've got people like, our TikTok champion, Liang Changxing, from the original Beijing team, who's Xingyi specialist, who openly said, training for the team, we just had to learn the form for competition, even back then. So that's why it hasn't changed that much. I mean, they had access to traditional teachers who would give them advice, but now it's the blind leading the blind.
Totally, and it's the broken telephone as well.
Yeah.
Now it's the student of the student of the student of the student. And way back before, he might have learned from a legitimate Xingyi teacher. And then it just became student of student of student of student. And it's like warped now. I mean, that's pretty common. So I was, Wu Bin used to live in my neighborhood in Beijing, like
Mm,
literally across. I was in Shi'erchu, which is the western second area, let's call it
mhm,
that. And he
mhm.
was in Shi'ichu, I think it was. It was just literally across from me. I could walk from him. Well, and I saw
Uh,
him years ago. I'd see him every now and then. Sometimes there'd be some traditional event that they'd call him to, and he'd be there, and then he'd give me a lift back home or whatever. And even he would say, like back then, and he was smart because he would call. He had access to these great traditional teachers in Beijing,
mm.
and he would make use of them. He'd call them to teach his athletes.
Yeah, yeah.
So nobody does that anymore. Forget it. I remember speaking to one professor at one university saying, "Oh, these traditional people, I never talk to them ever." I'm like, "Oh, well, that's good. That's going to serve you well. It's a good call. You
Oh,
do traditional Chinese sport, but let's just leave the traditional Chinese sport masters out of it. That's a good idea."
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, very good.
yeah, yeah. That's taking us a long way.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
well, I remember, at the time, Chang Xing was saying, that he really wanted to do well. He wanted to do better. So he
Hmm.
would go find the traditional teachers
He did
and
it with my
train.
teacher.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
that's
of
that's how he
course.
knew my teacher.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
And
he visited him
that's the
many
thing.
times. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he came to Beijing. I think it was maybe 7 years ago, and he called me and my teacher out to eat. I think it was about 7 years. It was before COVID, in the before times.
Mm.
So it was back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the last time I saw him in person. But it was just nice to hear. And my teacher would also tell me before, yeah, Liang Changxing used to come and ask and, you know, try to go deeper into some of the Xingyi ideas. When he had time,
Mm.
he'd come. So yeah. So that's good. That doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. So
Yeah. And I think that whole sense of connection and the uh, the family situation, like we say, "Wu li ni jia," martial arts is one family, but is it a dysfunctional family that nobody communicates with one another,
it's an
or do we
abusive family.
actually? Yes, to a degree now it is. But back then, and this is the thing that really got me. A lot of teachers are very protective. They don't want their students to go out. They don't want them to look at anything else, which is one reason why competition is not a good place to go to if
Hmm.
you want your students to be absolutely loyal to you.
Hmm.
And there's a unfortunate business model here in the States, at least, where people have workshops to teach you how to run a better martial art business. And one of the first things they say is, you should not allow your students to look at anything else. Don't take them to open competitions. Don't let them see other things. You must
Really?
become the fountain of knowledge for them, and their devotion to you must become absolute. Then,
Is part two of this lesson to tell them to go buy a ranch in Waco, Texas?
pretty much, pretty
Yeah, I mean
much.
that's really what you're
Yeah.
doing there.
Yeah, essentially. So you want a cult of personality,
Yeah.
and people, for whatever reason, people love that. I don't know what the attraction is. I've got an extreme amount of devotion to my shifu and to a lot of my teachers, and but my primary devotion is to my family. And
Yeah, yeah.
when you replace that with a sensei or a sabamnim or a sifu or a shifu or jiaolian, whatever you want, you create a problem. And because by and large, in many cases, that person, that teacher is there, like one of my first teachers who was hitting on the moms on the sideline while I was
Yeah.
teaching his class. Their main thing is this kind of, I don't know, solipsistic self-aggrandizement of I'm the master and everybody come to me and I give me your money, give me your whatever. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you've got that kind of situation, and then another one of my students, longtime students, who's quite good, and yet is having a hard time supporting himself teaching, went to some martial art business workshop, and he said the first lesson during the first lecture, the guy said, "Look, fundamentally, we have to understand that something that you do or say is going to piss off your student in the first year. So your objective is during that first year of training to get as much money out of them as you can."
Geez, what kind of courses are these?
They
I mean,
are the
this.
the shyster. Let's make it all about the Benjamins and forget
Mm,
about martial ethics. There is no Wuda. Forget about that.
yeah, yeah,
That's lip service. And you can find that reflected from that kind of little school in whatever area, which is again one of the reasons why they become the dogs that sit in the kennel and bark at one another.
right,
Because
right,
if you badmouth everybody else to your students, then they don't want to go study with them. They don't want to
right.
look at them. As opposed to my good fortune, which I am forever grateful for, Boss and Mark taking me on my first trip to China in 1984 to the Wuhan International Tai Chi Friendship Exchange and
Right,
Competition, which is the second time that I met Andrea. I
right.
met her in '83 in Montreal, but then that's also in '84, the time that I met Li Tianji, Li
Mm-hmm.
Yin, who would go on to become one of the big influences on me. I studied with Professor Li Yin many, many times. Um, I met Wu Bin before that, but and Wang Jinbao before that. But then in Wuhan, I mean, it's the luminaries of the traditional Taiji community.
Yeah.
Yang Zhenduo and Gu Luxin and Wu Yinghua, Ma Yueliang and Sun Jianyun and Sha Guozhang and He Fusheng. It's like all of these incredible teachers, Chen Shaowang at his young age.
Yeah.
And, I had the only high level master I had met prior to that was Feng Zhiqiang
Mm-hmm.
in Los Angeles in the 80s,
Yeah.
early 80s. And he blew me away.
Yeah,
And
well, he really was exceptional.
yeah,
Yeah.
just phenomenal. And those people were very open.
Boch, or Mongolian wrestling, is one of the three manly sports of Mongolian culture. With a history spanning thousands of years, this cultural activity has produced some of the greatest wrestlers on earth. Celebrate this culture of the Mongolian people and the spirit of the grassland with our new apparel available now. T-shirts and hoodies are available, featuring a striking design of two Jangat Boch wrestlers locked in combat. Available in various colors. Get yours today.
And welcoming to me. And my teacher purposefully introduced me to different people and said, Nick, if you come back to China, you should go, if you're in Beijing, you should study with Madame Sun. If you're,
Right.
like this kind of thing. And so I had a little connection with them. And, I just couldn't believe it. And I think the only thing was that I was this, tall white kid who didn't suck. It's like, you're like, again, no delusion. I don't believe that I'm that good or ever was that good, but I didn't suck. I wasn't bad. And
Yeah.
so people took me seriously and were like, oh, he could at least do the basic exercises.
Right.
Okay. And Xu Cai, the former president of the China Wushu Association, gave me two big compliments, which I treasure.
Hmm.
One, at the 1987 Chinese Nationals, I was hanging out with Beijing team, and I was there for the first international judges training course. Oh no, second one. So I
Right.
was there for that, and Beijing team arrived, and I had known them and trained at Shishahai before, so they're like, do you want to come and practice with us? Oh, can I? And I said, yeah, we're good. All the teams have practice time, so we're going to practice on the carpet at this time. Just show up. So I did basics with the Beijing team on the carpet at the competition.
Oh, wow.
That blew my mind that I'm even there. I'm like getting in line, sticking my arms out to do stretch kicks, going, "Holy crap! How is this happening?"
All
And
right.
then Shu Tai said afterward, he said, "You did a good basic training."
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
he said, "Except for some movements." It's very clear about it. He said, except for some movements, one would think that you were a member of the team.
Oh, wow. Well,
And
that's a
I'm like,
great compliment.
holy shit. I mean, there's no way. There's no way. I said, you are being very, very kind. Thank you so much. I appreciate the encouragement. And
Yeah.
then later at the which tournament? Baltimore tournament, I guess. Um, No, I'm sorry, forget the circumstance. But we were at an event and I demonstrated drunken boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think was probably one of my better events for performance. And Shusai said, so we can see that Wushu is now really uh,
International.
international
Yeah.
because when you look at Nick Gracenin, you can see he's got an American face. But when you watch his movements, you think he's Chinese.
Oh, yeah, that's a great compliment.
And I'm just going, holy shit. But at the same time, to be very frank, I thought, you know, I have worked my butt off for decades.
Yeah.
Why do I have to be Chinese to be good?
No, I know that. I get the subconscious
Yeah, yeah,
unhappiness with a comment like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and that was just me. It wasn't him. He didn't intend it that way, not in the least. I appreciated that.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately, there is a little bit of that subconscious bias,
yeah,
unfortunately, and it's just it's just gonna be there forever. I remember having a discussion with somebody that had studied with my teacher just for a short period of time, where we were talking about Chinese philosophy and Confucianism and things like that. And he said, "Oh, but foreigners can never understand it." I'm like, "Wait, do you think you popped out of your mother understanding Confucianism? Why? Do you think it was passed down to you through your DNA? Is that what you
yeah,
think? Or
yeah.
did you have to study it?"
Mm.
He's like, "No, I had to study it." I said, "So why the hell do you think that another person who speaks the language will not be able to study it to the same level or better? Because of the color of his skin or his face?
Yeah,
That's just a ridiculous idea." I mean, he kept
yeah.
quiet, but that mentality does exist there.
Sure,
So,
sure. Well, there's bias in everything. I mean, I think the thing that keeps me grounded is because I've had such a varied background and
mm,
coming from the Americanized Japanese karate and judo kempo background where mostly like we hated doing kata. Nobody in my class really enjoyed that. We just liked sparring. So,
okay,
everything was like, yeah, let's get through this so we can glove up.
exactly.
And so that was the thing. But I think that's what led a lot of us to a better level of skill. Like I remember finding out through talking to Paul Bertrand, who was arguably one of the best Canadian wushu athletes ever.
Mm,
Paul told me that Andrea had been a fighter in her youth,
she
training
was.
with Alex Falk, and
Yes,
so like and
exactly.
and Alex and I were old friends, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that about Andrea. And I said, that's why. She understands the physical intention, not just the idea of it, but being in there and
It's
banging it
true.
out with other people. That gives you a certain kind of sensibility that if you only practice Taolu, you won't have.
You won't have it. You won't, and also, like you just said, your intention will be misplaced.
Yes,
So, and
yeah,
that's a big part of the guidance of the movement and the guidance of
yes.
the power, and then the issuing of
Mm,
force, and just even structure is affected by it. So
yeah.
that's very true. And Alex is an old friend of mine too. I actually
Mm,
I haven't seen him for many years, but
yeah, me
I
too.
used to see him quite often at courses or events or whatever. He'd always be there. I don't think he's involved at all at that level anymore, but he's so unassuming when you see him. You don't know that this guy has a background of being a top class fighter.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
s-
Oh, for sure. And like Jim Cook in that era where it was pretty much blood and guts.
yeah,
So it's not like like tag and run away.
yeah,
They got in there and banged it out pretty hard. And
yeah.
I think that's the thing, when you have the feel that, having been in a university phys ed department as an instructor for like 13, 14 years, and my wife was a professional dancer and choreographer, so I'm always interested in movement in
Mm,
general. And my feeling is always that movement is this kind of idiokinetic phenomenon. It's how you think. I mean, the way you move, and you can tell that especially after coaching and having students for like 15, 16 years, and you know them. It's like your family. You know how they're doing just by watching them move. So the way you think is, in fact, how you move.
that's
And
true.
if it's not, it's chaos. It's random. And you might do well, you might do poorly, who knows? But when the intent is focused, then it becomes very clear. It just crystallizes everything about you. And that's the thing that I see athletes do in any sport at the very high levels. I remember seeing my very first professional basketball game here in DC, and a good friend of mine who's Japanese from Osaka uh, is a part owner of the Lakers. So they
Ooh.
were in town, and the Lakers were in town to play the Wizards here in Washington. And my friend said, "Hey, I have box seats if you want to go." I said, "Oh, let's
Mm,
go." So we went to the game. We're sitting there, and Kobe Bryant was playing, and just his intention, his clarity was blowing me away.
mm.
And my Japanese friend also speaks Chinese. I don't speak much Japanese except some cuss words and
The
like
important stuff.
yoko geri kekomi, like this,
Yeah,
all of the technical
the
words,
yeah.
ippon seonagi, so
Mawashi
all of those
Gary.
things. Yes, right. So that's well, I can talk punching and kicking, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're sitting there, and she leaned over and said, "What do you think of Kobe?" I said, "Sun Kung Fu is real
Mm,
Kung Fu. I mean, his skill has been developed and honed over time.
yeah.
To me, that's Kung Fu. He didn't just have talent. Somebody
No, no,
helped
no.
cultivate him,
I
and
don't know if
that's
you
the
know much
thing.
about
Yeah.
his background. I mean, there were seasons where in the off season he was like, "I'm gonna shoot 10,000 a day or a thousand." I don't remember the number, but he
Mm,
was in off seasons working
mm.
on stuff 7 hours, 8 hours a day nonstop,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then he'd come back the next season, and the improvement was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize what he was pushing himself through, and that is again intention. That's
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah. And dedication and the perseverance. That was a thing. It's still hanging on the wall here in our apartment. A scroll, a hanging I got at the International Wushu Festival in Hangzhou in '88.
Huh.
Three of us were singled out to get the Yo Hum Jing Award for
Mm,
you have perseverance, you have dedication, you don't
exactly.
give up. And well, thank you. And I mean, I appreciate it when people recognize the work. I don't care
Yeah.
so much about like people saying like, "Oh, you can kick so high," or like this, because I'm old. I don't kick high anymore. But the dedication is something that you keep your whole life. That's
Yeah.
the thing about people like Xiaobo Hua. I loved your podcast when you interviewed Andrea talking about Xiao because I learned he was the first professional teacher I worked with in China.
Mm,
And so when I went to China that first year in '84 with my shifu, we went to Beijing Tishuiyan to meet Zhang Wenguang, and because teacher Xia was one of Bosun Mark's teachers when she was there, when she brought Donnie to Beijing to train with the team. She went to the university and studied with Xia and with Cheng Shongrui and others, Man Huifang and so on. So, and of course, Li Tianji. So Xia Lao corrected my Jiaji Changchen and that year, which was, looking back on, I'm like, I'll bet it was just horrible. I don't have any video of me doing that set, but that's like the old original compulsory form from the 1950s.
Yeah.
That one, right? So, which went on forever, but it's the thing. And it's funny because just a few years ago, Li Yin was here visiting Washington. He has a daughter who lives close by. So he was coming here once a year for a while. And then COVID happened. But he was here, and I hosted him to do some workshops, and of course, selfishly get a chance to get private class with him. And he looked at me at one point, and he said, "When you were young, did you do the compulsory training courses?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "All of them?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I can tell." It's like, yeah, because there's no faking it.
Yeah,
like you either did the work, and that's the thing. Like what you're saying about Kobe, or any really high level athlete, that level of commitment cannot be seasonal. I think the thing is, though, that you have to. It's like with the seasons of our lives, you have to figure out what's the right level of training, the volume and the intensity, and even what subject matter you're training at what time. And you can't dispute that at a certain age, you better not be practicing things like Ditan Tren anymore.
No,
right?
You got to figure it out.
Yes.
You got to figure that out. Your the year has seasons, and so does your life.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Exactly.
It's okay. The answer is not it's changed, therefore I stopped. The trees don't die just because it's winter. They just change the way they exist. But they still exist. So we have to do that. But speaking about Li Yin, I was with him, I think 2020 or 2021 was the last time I saw him in person. And we were eating together at the same table. And I just said to him, I said, "I want to ask you a question." And he said, "Yes, what?" And I said, "Why did you include a Xingyi movement in 42 Tai Chi?" And he looked at me. He's like, "You're the first person who's ever asked me that." I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Yes. Come sit here. Let's talk." And we had a great conversation for hours. And I don't think a lot of people know that. But anyway, there is a Xingyi movement in the 42 that he put in deliberately. He had to put it in because they needed a shebu, and there was no other technique he could draw to have that posture in it. So he just pulled it out of Zha Shui and put it in. A lot of people don't know that, but there you have it. But he's great. I mean, I've always enjoyed. I've been with him a few times, and like we said, the different generations of teacher. Now his teaching comes from a very strong family line of martial artists. It's funny. I released a blog article yesterday about Haowen Guang. Haowen Guang, being Li Cunyi's student, and Haowen Guang's student was Li Yulin. So that teaching carries on all the way down to Li Yin. So
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I didn't know actually he had a daughter in the States. I know he has a daughter in the UK.
Yes,
Fei Yip. Yeah. I didn't know he had a daughter in the States. So that's
Unfortunately, she lives in my area. So every time that they're coming to visit their daughter and grandkids, son-in-law, we've been able to host him and his wife, Madame Fong, who's phenomenal. She's always inspirational to. Especially, I have a lot of middle-aged to older people who I teach now. So mostly I'm teaching Tai Chi Chuan, and then I have a few younger people that are doing Bagua, Xingyi, and Baji.
Okay.
But I think there's only right now two people that I coach long fist, but and after doing
Hmm.
that for decades, it's like, yeah, this is nice. I get to do the deeper stuff. Not that there's no depth to, especially like cha tren and hua tren and so on, but
Right.
doing the real internal work, that's something that for me is just rewarding, and
Hmm.
I love it as much when I have someone in their 70s, 80s, or 90s have a breakthrough, and they tell me, like, my balance is so much better. Oh, I don't
Yeah.
feel nervous. I just feel so good. My vitality is returning. This has been a miraculous event for me taking your class, and that means as much or more in some ways as when I have a teenager winning gold medals.
Oh, I
You
can I
know,
can believe it. Well, we were mentioning that earlier that it does improve lives, and at the very least, that's what it should do.
yeah,
So, you know what they
yeah,
were saying, like uh, they were recommending Tai Chi for elderly people, and it was reducing falls and things like that. But you
right.
know, I always wondered if there could be, I don't know if there's a possibility or how or where they'd start to do it, but to do, some clinical trials on the changes to bone density, particularly within legs,
Mm,
hips, of people that are a little bit older if they haven't done something and then they start to do some Xing Quan. Because I'm
yes.
pretty sure that repeated dropping of the mass, which is very deliberate, and it's there with every single technique basically that we do in Xing Quan,
Mm,
gradually has an effect on bone density, and an improvement in bone density, especially with people that are, like women, when they go post menopause, they start to get osteoporosis and things like that. I wonder
mm.
if that has a a helpful effect on that, just as a side benefit. I'm sure there is, but it's just something I've
Yeah.
always thought about.
No, I actually was teaching at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center
Hmm.
in Shadyside in Pittsburgh for a few years. And so I started to really interface with the medical community quite a bit. And again, my wife being a dancer, me teaching in a PE program for
Hmm.
a long time, I'm somewhat versed in medical terminology and especially anatomy. And I had a couple people take my class here in DC who were anatomy professors. And the one lady came to the class and said something afterward. I had mentioned something about, now here I want you to feel the head of the femur in the acetabulum, feel how the rotation happens when you
Hmm.
do this exercise. And I could see her kind of just turn her head a little bit. And, the way she regarded me was, a little bit out of the norm. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know what I said, but and then after class, she came over and she said, I just wanted to say, like, I came to this class with my husband thinking we're going to do some nice, gentle exercise, but, you know, I'm an anatomy professor. I'm retired, and I'm just so impressed that you actually understand anatomy. And
Right.
so, like, oh, okay. Well, I hope. Please correct me if I make mistakes. I'm sure I will. And she said, no, no, you were great. So we had this great experience. But working in that community a little bit, and we use Tai Chi and Qigong at UPMC's Center for Integrative Medicine
Okay.
as a healing modality. So when people were not getting any great result from the traditional methods, often patients were referred over to our center, and we would provide all sorts of different things that they could choose from to try and help at least alleviate some of the symptoms if we couldn't directly affect the cause. But
Right.
finding that people who were in my classes for some time would come in and say things like, my posture is better. My family
Hmm.
has said, like, I just I seem to be standing taller and I'm not hunched over anymore. And I'd say, well, it's that same kind of osteoporotic tendency that women have that you spoke of. Like that helps. That we're building bone density, we're getting better kinesthetic awareness, your ability to feel, to have good proprioception and know where you are in space. You feel your crown lift. You actually can Xu Ding Jing, right? You can do that. It's the thing that's helping you, and not only in terms of the physiology, but also because you feel better, you're more confident. Because your body is no longer feeling like something that's betraying you every single day. You feel more comfortable, and so your spirit can come out. It can manifest. But when you're constantly bombarded, and trust me, having had both hips go, and they were bad. I mean, the surgeon who did my hips, Byron, told me, he said, Nick, I'm a surgeon for a lot of the Washington, at that time, Redskins football players. Said, most of those guys do not have hips as bad as yours.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh, and then when I saw the MRIs and I saw the particles that were floating around inside there and occasionally wedging, and it was literally like an ice pick in my hip. I mean, it was worse than the worst chin knot anyone ever applied to me.
Really?
Just horrible pain that would hit out of the blue because the little piece, that little bit of bone that wore off, is now wedged between your head of the femur and your acetabulum digging in. And so this kind of pain is much worse than bone on bone. And, and it just happens randomly. So I'd be walking with my wife and suddenly, oh my God, I feel, like I want to just collapse. And so you get used to a certain level of constant pain. And that constant pain leaches energy from you like a vampire. It's just horrible. So the feeling of release from that I see in some of the students, I love what I do now. I love being able to help people transcend a little bit to get out of the pain cycle and do better with their health and their life. And it's very rewarding. I love teaching children, but at some point too, as you get older, no, put your thumb outside your fingers when you make a fist. I mean, you can only say that so many thousands of times before you're like, I think I'm done. It's time. As you said, like the seasons change, Master Feng Zhixiang, the first lesson I had with him, he said, like, everything in the universe spirals. So we should feel the spiral, and then we should create a continuation of those spirals, which is why his push hands was legendary. That kind of skill, that's so hard to find. And the other person like that, I have to do an aside about this man because he impacted me so greatly, was another old Beijing guy, Wang Peishan. And Wang Laoshi, I met in Virginia at a Taste of China, and God bless Pat Rice for being the unsung hero of the internal Chinese martial arts in North America, because she invited so many of these luminaries like Wang and like Chen Shaohuang. His first trip to America was to a Taste of China in '88, to so many things, so many people who came to the States because of her, Yang Zhenduo, and just, the list goes on. Anyway, Wang Peishan was here in '93, and we did a master's demonstration thing, and I was emceeing because, my Chinese is awful now, but at that time it was pretty good. So I was fairly bilingual and able to announce in Chinese so that the teachers knew who was coming up next and all of that and what was being said about them and so on. And also one of Bruce Lee's first students, Daniel Lee, was there. And, he was also coming up and translating for the teachers when they wanted to say something.
Okay.
So there's a video of that event. And during the video, or during the performance, I did one of the famous forms from Fu style, from Bose Mark's teacher's father's style, called Liang Yi Chuan. So the Liang Yi is a mixture of Tai Chi and Bagua.
Right.
And then I also did, for entertainment sake, drunken boxing. And Wang Peishang was, of course, invited up at the end of the thing, last place of honor, to give a demonstration of his famous Wu style.
Yeah.
So he came up and he made a few statements, and he said, and this like really touched my heart. He said, now, this is my first trip to America. I'm very happy to be here. And so many teachers, like Yang Jingming, Liang Shouyu, He Weiqi, Huang Chen, Wei Lan Huang, Dan Li, many people there. And Wang Peishang gets up and he points to me and has me come up and stand by the microphone. And he said, so today I'm looking at an American man do Bagua, dragon-shaped Bagua. Mm-hmm. So by watching, of course, he was able to just right away go like, oh yeah, this is like Fu Zhensong's dragon Bagua. Yeah. And then he said, and also drunken style. And he said, and I remember being in 1936 a judge at a competition where a young man from Shanghai, Shao Shankang, did drunken boxing. And of course, I idolized Shao Shankang. So immediately I'm hearing this and my eyes are welling up. He goes, and today I see this American man perform drunken boxing with the same technical level and same spirit. And spirit. And I'm like blown away. And He Weiqi afterwards comes up to me, she goes, hi, Nick, Master Wang talked about you. Your face very red. Then very white, then red, white, red, white, red, white. You
should have said you're very patriotic. After a minute, it went blue.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was like he blew my mind for sure. And then he invited me to come to visit him, and with his interpreter, and sat me down in his hotel room and just lectured me for about 2.5 hours. And the next day, I'm with my students. We're getting ready for this, competitions and everything. And I'm pushing hands with people. And they're like, holy shit, Nick, why are you so much better? And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, like, well, you were good before, but now it's like ridiculous. And I said, Master Wang gave me a private class yesterday. It really made a difference.
Oh, wow.
And it did. It did. And so, later I took a group to Beijing to study with him, and he just would sit us down and lecture. And then in the middle of the lecture, he'd say something about Tai Chi's relationship in the old days to the other styles, and just like jump up and do a drop stance and bow stance punch combination, hitting the full drop stance. His rear end was like 1 inch off the floor. Yeah. And he was in his later years, and I'm going, I want to be him when I grow up. It's the same thing, like I just can't believe how good the old generation was.
Yeah, they're different. They're different.
Totally different. Sure. I mean, Li Yin.
Are you interested in learning authentic traditional Chinese martial arts of Xing Yi Quan and Bagua Zhang? Well, if that's the case, the Huajin Online Learning Program is for you. The Huajin Online Learning Program is the premier distance learning program where you can learn authentic arts of Hebei Xing Yi Quan and Liang-style Bagua Zhang in a comprehensive and in-depth manner from wherever you are. Featuring over 120 in-depth lessons covering aspects of individual training, technique refinement, forms, application, partner work, conditioning, internal skill building and Qigong, and much more. The Huajin online learning program has been running successfully for over 3 years and is highly praised by participants within the program. So start your journey into learning authentic classical Chinese martial arts today by visiting mushinmartialculture.com to find out more, or to sign up directly at patreon.com/mushinmartialculture. That is the Huajin online learning program. Enroll today.
Dao Yin teaching classes that I've witnessed and quote been his assistant for, like he needs it, for several years, and he's so thorough, so engaging, so clear, and very, very generous. Like he will just naturally flow with people when they're having a hard time, or if they need to ask a question, or he can easily squelch somebody who's starting to be a little bit disruptive with questions and get them to turn it around, and he'll talk to them later and all that without ever ruffling one feather. And I'm going like, yeah, this guy is a pro. This is, you don't get this without doing the gongfu of teaching. So, for some of them, I feel like I learned the gongfu of training, whatever field it was, whatever method. But for others, and especially with Li Dian, I got not only that, but also how to be a better teacher, how to really present in a better way so that people can actually get it. And not everyone is going to, and that's okay. And I think it's just, of course, at this stage in my life, I'm going, gosh, I wish that it weren't true that youth is wasted on the young. Like I wish that I could have had this information when I was a young guy and able to do much more than I can do now. But I can still do a lot. But it's always problems happen by comparison. So I'm not unhappy. I'm grateful for what has happened for me. And the doors that Bose and Mark opened for me, and at this stage, I guess I'm sorry, I'm getting to that point where a lot of my teachers passed during COVID, so many, and people that I really wanted to see at least one more time, and so it's just awful, to think about that level of knowledge that to some degree is lost, which is why I'm so in support of, this podcast, in, your book, in all the translations and the books that Andrea wrote, like the Beijing Bittersweet was like, that really touched me on so many levels, right? Because a lot of those people I knew, and some not just the coaches, but knowing, not just training with, but knowing the professional athletes of that era, like going to the opening gala of the Wushu Festival in Hangzhou in '88 with Xi Xiangdong, the Eagle Claw King, and him sitting there next to me, and I'm watching people do really good demonstrations, and he's leaning over going, I'm so sorry, the level of Wushu is not very high. I'm like, oh Lord, if you only knew what I see at home. So but like all of those experiences, and that's the thing, it's like, it's a family. Wang Jurong and her husband Wu Chengde, they treated me like their nephew. And, I mean, just to have had all of those experiences is just a blessing to me, to be able to have interacted with, even briefly, Li Tianji in Beijing and Wuhan and in Japan at the first Asian Wushu Championships in Yokohama, where I was there and spent lots of time with him, just talking again in the hotel room. Just, it's like, I guess that's been, for me, going to lunch or going to dinner or going to sit in the hotel room and get secondhand smoke inhalation while and being forced to drink baijiu and stuff.
Goes without
all
saying.
of that. that's the thing. It's like I learned so much in those social interactions that were really deeply instructional, and I miss that. I miss that so much. But
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you mentioned a lot of the teachers have passed, and when one thing I must say that kind of stood out from pre-COVID to post-COVID, I would go to post-COVID. I went to the parks that I used to go and pre-COVID and train with my teacher or just see other teachers at. And I went back probably 2023 and saw that most of the old faces are gone, and
mm,
the ones that were still there, they were just old faces. There was no new next group coming in, and I
um,
remember, like with my teacher, there was always, a 22-year-old that's just come in and he started training.
mm,
But now it's just us that's left, and I don't know what's going to happen after that, because even in China, there's not much interest.
yeah.
So yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see
it's
what
a
happens.
shame. Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, like, I love the fact that Donnie's movies are so good.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, Crouching Tiger Part Two was a total turkey, but that's okay.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Yeah,
sometimes you get a turkey.
yeah. And I told him I will never forgive him for that one, by the way. But but the other things, they have drawn a lot of attention to martial art, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, like with John Wick 4,
Hmm.
it's so much gun violence.
Yeah.
And, I mean, living in cities that don't have, uh, all the restrictions, like, when I was in the UK, I felt great because it's like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about that guy hacking, you know.
Yeah.
And being in DC, living in Boston, in New York, you always had to just be. It's in the back of your mind, like, who's carrying.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I wish that the filmmakers and producers would consider, and the writers, that, yes, the world of assassins, obviously there's a lot of guns. That's the weapon of
Yeah.
choice. But does it have to be ubiquitous? I really wish we could do something about that, because people aren't that interested in learning martial art when it's so much easier to pick up a Glock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. True. True. I wanted to ask, now that we've gotten to your teaching. So
Mm,
you're still teaching currently.
yes.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about where you're teaching, and if anybody's looking to come and learn with you, how they can get in contact.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching professionally since the '80s, and I've only had one period where teaching martial art was not my primary source of income. And that was when I first moved to DC. And I had a school in Pennsylvania, um, country music everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I had my school in Pennsylvania. And then, I was teaching something like 7 to 8 classes a day. And then coming to DC, and I was teaching 3 classes a week at a health spa and yoga studio. And
Mm.
that went on for a while. And I just really was unable to get things off the ground, and took a job as a phys ed teacher at a charter school,
Mm-hmm.
and worked at a Lululemon store selling
Oh,
yoga
wow.
pants. And there's a very well known teacher, Liu Xiaoling, who's here in the DC area. One of his
Yeah.
students came into the store with his wife, and she's looking to buy some yoga apparel, and he's like, "Shifu Nick." I was
Oh,
just
really?
couldn't believe it, and I'm like, "Hey, George," and he goes, "Wow, I'm amazed to see you here. Are you working here?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "Oh, do you own the franchise?" I'm like, "No, I'm just an employee." He goes, "What are you doing here? This is so wrong. You should not be doing this. You should be teaching." Yes, I said, "Well, when you got to keep the rice bowl full."
Yeah.
And especially, my wife has had chronic Lyme disease since the
Oh,
early 90s. And so because of that, she can't really work. I've got to support. And, it's been a big struggle. But regardless, I kept teaching throughout all of that. And then, after being here in DC for a few years, it took me about 3 years. I actually was able to make a living again by just teaching. So I was
oh,
able to
that's
stop
great.
all the other stuff. But yeah, there's a one young Sifu from Texas who comes to visit on occasion and takes some classes. And he always said, Sifu Nick, it's amazing. You're hiding in plain sight. And I'm like, I just don't want to be involved with the competition circuits,
Right.
with all of that stuff anymore. I just did it for so long, and I really I just can't. I just can't do it anymore. And it's not that I have ill will toward any of those folks, but yeah, it's the season that season changed for me. And I really just want to teach. I understand now a little bit about why I was selected. Basically, my shifu said, "No, the old guy sifu." I can hear her voice. The old guy sifus want to do some organization, so you go represent me. I'm like, people, I don't speak Cantonese, and I'm going to have a hard time there. I'm a tall white kid. And she said, no, you go, you are that one because you're that guy. So, so that's how I got started being in all the organizations and all of that.
Right.
But goodness, that led to all sorts of things. Here I am, though, at this point in time, just enjoying teaching my classes at a few different senior center type places in the DC area. And I have a lot of private students. I'm very grateful that people are interested to learn. And mostly teaching Tai Chi Chuan now. I got to study Sun style with Sun Jianyun. I got to study Chen style with Feng Zhichang and Chen Xiaowang and Chen Zhenglei, and Fu style with, of course, my teacher with Bosun Mark, then with Fu Jiansong's grandsons, Fu Wenlong and Fu Shenlong, who's living in Vancouver, and with Fu Yonghui himself, of course, Bosun Mark's teacher, whom I met in Wuhan in '84. With other teachers, I mean, the amazing teachers like Li Deyin and Wang Feishang. But I got to circle back to An Tianrong, who, when I found he was working in that hotel situation in Cleveland, I said, "No, please come and stay with us." So he came and lived with my family. We had a guest room. He was able to stay with us for months, and it helped. My Chinese got so much better. It was getting bad. And but I was trying to get him to speak English, and he's like, no, I just can't. I just can't. I said, but I'm not sure, if you're going to be in America, you want to teach, then you have to speak some English. And he just, it's hard to make that change. But anyway, all of those people had such a big influence on me. So I'm teaching a lot of material I learned from Bosun Mark. I'm teaching things that I learned. Like I have a nice Sun style group that we do the traditional form from Sun Jianyun, but I also got to study that with Li Deyin. And Li Deyin's lineage also from his uncle Li Tianji, from his father Li Yulin, who was not only a disciple of Alan Guang, but also of Sun Lutang.
Yes,
so,
that's right.
So I'm very fortunate. I still, like I said, pinch myself. How did I luck into all of this? I still teach the push hand methods that I learned with Wang Peishang and Feng Zhiqiang and Bosun Mark, of course, and An Tianrong, whose Kushans was really damn good. And the Wudang sword. Oh, this is something that's amazing.
Yeah.
Li Dayin was coming here to teach, and we're on the phone talking about what to offer. And I said, so Li Laoshi, what would you like to teach this year? And he said, oh, I'll teach Wudang sword.
Right.
And he had already taught Wudang Taiji sword, which was, Li Tianji's sort of intermediary step. Like there's the Taiji sword, then there's Wudang sword. So in between, that's a big jump to go from one to the other. So in between, Li Tianji had created Wudang Taiji sword.
Okay.
On the other side of my family tree, Fu Yonghui had created an intermediary form. And, they were contemporary. So it's like, wow, they're thinking the same way.
Right.
In Fu style, there's Fu style Taiji sword, which is just their version of the Yang style Taiji sword form. And then there's Fu Zhensong's creation of Wudang Flying Dragon sword, which was his distillation of what he learned from Li Jinglin.
Right.
And since Li Jinglin did not teach a solo form, many of his disciples were left to create basically their own thing.
Yeah.
And so Fu Yonghui created 7-star sword to do that job, to be the intermediary step. So Li Dayin said he'll teach Wudang sword on the phone. I said, oh, but people have already learned Wudang Taiji sword. Maybe we could have a review session of that. He said, no. You can keep reviewing Wudang Taiji sword. I'll teach Wudang sword. And so I thought he meant the Wudang 2-person form that Li Jinglin created. And I said, oh, so people have studied, but not everybody remembers because it's difficult to have a partner. And so we could arrange that. He said, no, you can teach the Wudang fencing. I want to teach Wudang sword. And I said, oh, you mean the solo form? Li Tianji's solo form? He said, yes. And I'm like, oh my, okay. Wow, that's fantastic. And then when he got here, Madame Fong, his wife, told me, that Professor Li hasn't taught this to a group before. And I said, and so I said to Professor Li, I said, oh, well, we're very, very honored that we're the first group in America to study this. And he said, no, you're the first group.
Period.
I said, even in China? He said, yes, in China, I've taught it to a few students, very good students, like Gao Jiamin and Wang Erping and people like that.
Yeah.
But I've not taught it to a group of students before. This is the first time it's being taught as a group.
Wow.
And that blew me away. So he spent a weekend teaching us. It's fascinating to me that we have a little park about a block away from where I live. And here was Li Dayin teaching Wudang sword to about 60 people in this park in the middle of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
It's like blowing my mind.
No, that is special.
Yeah. And so,
Do you remember like how many techniques there are in that routine, just roughly?
Oh yeah, it's about 60 or so. Like a lot of the traditional routines,
Right. It would be
get
about
written up
60,
about
yeah.
60 or so. But this is it's also called the Taiji Shisanjian, and sometimes Chunyangjian, like the
Pure
Taiji's
yang.
13 form and Pure Yang, and the Yin Yang rolling the pearl sword. So there are a few variations of it that I've seen out there. But Li Tianji's version is very clear. He wrote a book about Wudang sword that was co-authored with his daughter Li Defang, who's a phenomenal teacher too, by the way, and with Li Dayin. So that book, I actually hired Andrea to translate.
Oh,
Because she did such a phenomenal job on Li Tianji's book on Xingyi.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so there's only one person that I would trust this to. And, my Chinese is okay, but not to translate something like that.
Right.
And so I translated a few little things here and there, but and it takes forever, as I'm sure you know. And your
Yeah, it
Chinese
does.
is way better than
People
yeah.
don't realize how long it takes.
Oh
They
God,
really
it's
don't.
yeah, and you know, not just to do the translation, but to put it in the proper context.
Exactly.
That's so difficult. And some things you just really can't translate. And when Andrea was working on this project for us, she actually sent me a note saying like, yeah, then there's this statement, and I really don't get it. I've sent a message to Jarek.
Oh,
So,
right.
because you know he is so good
Yeah.
and understands it at you know that old archaic kind of level.
Yeah.
Which like I have a student who's Taiwanese here in DC, and for a while when Professor Lee was teaching, I think he was teaching the 2-person routine, the Sancho, and
Hmm.
uh, I just was getting tired. It's like the third day of the weekend, and I just couldn't focus and do the translation properly. And so I said, Professor Lee, please excuse me. And I asked my student, Miss Huang, to come up and translate. And like people in the group are kind of, you know, giggling a little bit like, oh man, you're defeated kind of thing. And then Miss Huang got up and she starts trying, and then she's having a hard time. And and people started laughing, and she goes, okay, wait a minute. Look, guys, you have to understand. This is damn Shakespearean Chinese.
Yeah.
This is not normal Chinese. We don't talk this way. In daily life, you don't encounter these expressions.
That's
And
why I love
yeah,
there's a bunch of people nowadays trying to just throw Chinese martial arts books, even older ones like Republican era ones, into some
mm,
AI to translate and publish, and it's just a total cock up because they
yeah,
don't realize you can't. It just doesn't work like that. Even native speakers can't understand half of this stuff. Never mind.
yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, it's ridiculous. And I tried that. Of course, I took some documents and scanned them and put them in the program, and it's like, oh, gibberish.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
there's nothing. You can't do anything with that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, it's painstaking, but you know, we did this work. Andrea did this work, and you know, I'm still waiting for Professor Lee's approval and so
Oh,
on. But
great.
we
So
definitely
it's a
want
recent
to.
thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's not published yet, but it's the Wudang sword history fundamentals, some theory, and then the solo form, and then the 2-person routine,
Right.
including all 5 sections. And then there's an appendix, the Hobu Duijian, the active stepping sword fencing
Yeah.
routine, which is basically like section 6. It's like the secret
Right.
sixth section. And so that should be published, I hope, at some point soon.
Oh, that's great.
I'm going to work with Professor Lee's daughter Faye in the UK to do that, and you know, I think that's the best thing. I want the family to have that. It's not like I'm going to publish it and you know, try and you know, basically take credit for it. It's not mine.
Right, I get
So
it.
yeah, and then
I
there's a
actually have
bunch of
an
other
old
things.
manual that my teacher gave me
Oh,
from 19, I want to say 82, maybe around there. It was published in Wuhan um, by the Wuhan Wushu Association, which is literally, it's just titled Wudang Jian.
hmm.
I'm wondering if it's a very similar, or if not the same routine. It could be. It is around 60 techniques, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah, I've had that from my teacher for years. I don't actually remember who published it or wrote it, but yeah, these are special things. So I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to seeing yours
yeah, and
for
you know,
sure.
that's the thing. Like, you know, Andrea and I were communicating about it online, and you know, she said like, I really hope that we can get through this because it's such a good book, as you
Mm,
know, all of Li Tianji's work was and is, and it's something that should be preserved and also
yeah, for
passed
sure,
on to the next generation. Um,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm just trying to scan my memory banks here. Yeah, I think it's like 65 moves or so
Okay.
for the solo form. But
Okay.
yeah, just fantastic work. And his other book, he has a. I would assume you probably have seen it. He has a great book about Wudang martial art in general, where
Mm.
he actually talks about things like the throwing daggers and all of the other archaic weapons that were
Yeah.
part and parcel of the Wudang style. So
Right.
yeah, just yeah, aside from all of his other contributions, which I thought were many, this is just yet another one. So
For
I'm,
sure.
yeah, happy to facilitate that. Anyway, back
Well,
to the
that's
original
great.
thing about teaching.
Yeah.
I am teaching a lot in DC. I don't travel so much anymore. I used to travel quite a bit, but I prefer to basically stay here and take care of my family, and
Mm-hmm.
time with them is precious to me. So we do that, and I've got a bunch of people who do travel and come to visit me from time to time to learn different things. Any of your listeners who's interested in whatever I have to offer, happy to share with anybody, and
Well,
would
how would they
love
get in
to.
contact with you?
Oh, so the website is dctaichi.com. Easy.
Okay.
And we also have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page. And we're going to be hitting, I have a student who's just done ho on this. So I guess we'll be hitting the social media platforms pretty hard this
Good.
fall. So, yeah.
Oh,
Inspired
that's
by
good.
you.
Oh,
Inspired
well,
by you. Yeah.
glad to hear it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna get those links that are available now. I'll put them in the description in the on the podcast here. So whatever you want publicly available for people to check out your website or contact details, we'll put it all in there as well, so people can get in contact.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm starting to also host like a seasonal workshop. So
Okay.
we have one coming up, in fact, in about a month in September, where I will be teaching Wudang sword and Wudang fencing, and also the Fu style Liang Yitran.
Perfect.
And yeah, so we'll have a bunch of different topics that some of your listeners might find interesting. And also Friday night, we have a special, I haven't taught this before, Bagua Qigong from Liang Changya, one of Fu Zhensong's last disciples,
Hmm.
which is
Where
a
is
little,
that?
oh, sorry, go
Where
ahead.
with the seminar that you just mentioned? Because you didn't say where,
Oh,
when.
yeah, sorry. It is here in DC. And the all the information is on the website and the Facebook
Okay.
page.
Okay, perfect. And then also the Friday nights Bagua Qigong class info is there too?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, we'll get people to head on over to that to check it out. It's been great chatting to you. There's a lot more that I wanted to ask you, but maybe we'll have to do a part two because there's some other topics that I really wanted to hear about, but we can plan that for the future.
Yeah, oh, I'd love to. Especially, I can wax hopefully somewhat eloquently about Bose and Mark. I cannot say enough good
Yes.
things about my teacher
Well,
and all that
definitely.
she's done for me. But I think that she's done for Chinese martial arts in North America, especially since the time. Especially next year is her 50th anniversary of the founding of her school in Boston.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, this has been a very, very full 50 years for me and for her. And we're working to create a nice anniversary party. Her daughter, Donnie's sister, is now living in the area with her husband. So we're going to
Mhm.
work together and do some more good things and keep the Bose and Mark legacy alive.
Perfect. Well, maybe we'll plan another podcast closer to the time, and it'll fit in nicely for that 50th anniversary.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's been great
Yes,
chatting to you. Thank you for
it's,
your time today,
oh, thank
and
you.
look forward to the next one.
It's my pleasure, and best of luck with all your endeavors. And thank you again so much for doing that.
Oh no, it's my pleasure, and thank you. All right, well, we'll chat soon. You have a good rest of the day, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.
All right, take care, Byron.
Okay, bye bye.